Hey guys and gals, welcome to part 2 of our episode with David Taborn. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, make sure to go back and listen to that. David was such a character to interview, and honestly I could listen to him talk all day, so I think you should definitely go back and check out the rest. If you are a fan of the show, we'd love to see you in our new Facebook group. You can click on the link in the description, or even reach out to me or the group or our Facebook page personally, and we'll make sure you get in there. We'd love to hear from you and love to hear your thoughts on the show. So make sure you let us know. That's enough housekeeping for now, and here's the rest of the interview.
I loved the way that you described how sometimes you have to cringe. And, when you were describing that, I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's kind of like life too. You have moments in life where you just cringe. And then over a period of time, you look back and you go, well, that wasn't a bad move. Oh, that was a door opener. And so as you're talking about that, I'm sitting there going, man, I've got a lot of cringeworthy events in my life that, hey, are now, if I look back at it, it's starting to bloom. But anyways, you could relate that to life.
Well, trust your cringes. I mean, I think that's...
Trust your cringes.
That's the slogan, for the future, yeah.
There we go. Hey, Hayden, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just even along that line, I think it's also, if you're cringing at something or you're evoking that kind of emotion, you're capturing something, right? Like you've actually moved yourself to make that or have that response.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes it visceral. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of taps into your inner being, because we're all very complex, and we all have kind of different hang-ups as well as our different propensities, and just to locate things that actually touch you is life enhancing. I mean, you'd have to be truly on the spectrum to fully avoid too many cringes in your life, and funnily enough, can I talk about one painting I made, which was kind of at the end of the homunculus ones, and it's a 6 foot by 6 foot piece made out of copper pipe on the outside, and it was called Joey the Musical Boys, and it related to a famous case history called Joey the Musical Boy, which was this early pioneer of autism, Bruno Bettelheim, ran this clinic to deal with autism. He himself had spent some time in Buchenwald. Anyway, he came across this young boy called Joey, who could only exist or thought of himself as a machine, and could only feed through pipes and had to be wired up for everything, and had no sense of self other than the fact of being a machine that had to have fuel and all these kind of things, and that was a kind of a strange homunculus feeling for me anyway. And so when I found out that Bettelheim himself was a bit of a fraud, in that he used to cherry pick, so people would visit the clinic, and he would have severe cases of autism, and then apparently cured children who'd suffered from autism. But in fact, it was all a little bit manipulated. So he'd bring out, some jolly little person, pretty well balanced, who perhaps hardly had any problems at all, and he'd say, yes, you should have seen him before. He was, he was just like that guy that's all kind of wired up there. So anyway, that was the start of this thing, this idea, of self-mythologizing and creating our own storyline, our own backstory, which we all do. And in fact, I was going to joke about, if you believe anything I say, then more fool you. But of course, I am veracity personified. But that apart, there was part of the subject was, I'd been to an auction sale, and I saw in the distance this work on paper, and I thought, that looks interesting. I went over, and it was by Joseph Beuys, and it wasn't in the catalogue as Joseph, it just said like abstract thing. So anyway, I put a bid in and got it for a couple of £100, And I thought, oh, that's great. That's really nice. And then another one came up. And so I got those. And I thought, oh, if I get them authenticated, I'm going to be a rich person. So then I thought, how do I do that? Anyway, the only way of doing it would be to contact Frau Beuys, who lives in Dusseldorf in Germany, and give her 500 euros. And then she would say, yes, it is. No, it isn't. And I thought, well, I don't really like that very much, especially if she comes back and says, no, it isn't, and I've just spent 500 euros for that. So I thought, here's another example of liminality. It's like Schrodinger's cat. It's either a voice or it isn't a voice, but at the moment it's hovering between one or the other. So I put that in the painting as well, within this frame. Then it led me on to Wagner. So I was reading a bit about and listening to some Wagner, Tristan and Isolde, and I was kind of reading about that a little bit. And then I came across some aspects of anti-Semitism that he was involved with. And I thought, oh, this is very strange, because also he backtracked on that, Wagner did. So there was this duality going on there. So I thought that's another binary thing going on here. And then I was thinking about Freud, Sigmund Freud, and his relationship. And by coincidence, another serendipitous occurring, somebody said, oh, we're reupholstering Freud's sofa, what used to be Freud's sofa, from his house in Hampstead. And they'd been using it on a stage for some kind of set, but it had to be the actual one. So I said, oh, well, can I have a bit of the old cloth and a bit of the old innards? So they got me some of the horsehair and they got me some of the innards of it. And then I came across these pews, the pews, the chairs that you have where you could put your hymn book at the back behind them, in mission halls and stuff. I had one of those. So I sliced it in half so that it would fit against the wall. And then I stuffed the horsehair into the box where the Bibles would go, because they looked exactly like pubic hair, like coming out. And then I had the Wagners, I started to melt them, and they formed part of this thing going on. But of course, also I got these pipes traveling around the outside, around the framing edge, which I then plumbed into the chair, and I plumbed into everything. So it's a bit like Joey in his condition. I kept the whole painting on the inside alive by plumbing, really, by connecting pipes here, there, and everywhere. And also I broke the leg of one of the legs of the chair, and I bandaged it with Freud's sofa cloth. Anyway, so that basically what that was dealing with was self-mythologizing, which you had like with Wagner, you had it with Bettelheim, you had it with Freud, but also, I don't know if you know, but with Beuys, he was always banging on about how, he was in the Luftwaffe, and he got shot down over the Crimea. And he was always saying, oh, yes, these group of kind of Tatar tribal ones, they rescued me, and they wrapped me in felt and grease to keep me warm. And that's why I use felt and grease in some of the works I do. It turned out really that the rest of the Luftwaffe battalion, or whatever they're called, went on a search party, and they found him and they brought him back. So he kind of created this very interesting myth, because he was, he wanted to be a shaman. He wanted to be dealing with that other world. One of his famous performances with a wolf, a live wolf, and so on. So, I mean, I don't hold that against him, but it means that, a lot of autobiographies are written, with almost Trumpian disregard to facts,
I had a question, actually, because you brought up that definition of art for yourself, like the Wittgensteinian
Yeah.
kind of look at it. When did you kind of define that for yourself? Because I feel like with like the composers I've met, or I'll put my camera on, that'll help. That I feel like I'm at least for myself and for a few people I know, like we're always kind of like looking for the next definition of it, or like trying to constantly redefine it for ourselves, or what music is or what art is. But like it seems like you have a solid grasp, at least of what that is for you, and like, or when did you discover that, and how has that helped you focus your work?
Well, yeah, again, I think pretty much most of what I do is a posteriori or phenomenological. So the act occurs first, and then I slowly it resonates, or slowly insinuates itself into my consciousness about what the ramifications of it are. But also because I'm interested in things like musicality. When you're asking about when your father was asking about either when something is finished or when the image emerges that you're happy with. Well, it's exactly the same. Very often, if I look at a piece that I've done, then if the music's right, then it's right. If it kind of, and I'm not a synesthete in that sense. In the wholesome sense of seeing numbers as colors or anything like that. But I certainly make a correlation between music and the relatively inanimate art object, but one which has the timelessness and multidirectionality of something like a painting. And music itself, because it's kind of constantly moving, well, backwards and forwards as well. But there's an artist, Jun Nam Pak, who was a great influence. He was a member of the Fluxus group, and I don't know if you know of his work, but he was the one who first actually did the superhighway, the internet, the global superhighway, where he had multiple events taking place across the globe. He was originally trained as a pianist, but of course, his work moved very easily through the different disciplines of object making with his robots and so on, to prepared piano pieces, not unlike Cage, only much more violent. And in fact, on one of the performances that he did, our old friend Joseph Boyce came in unannounced at the end, and Pack had been playing this piece on a piano that was full of objects that were likely to cut your fingers off or do things. So he kind of prevented you from moving freely across the keyboard because you had to negotiate these things. Anyway, when the piece was ended, Boyce came in with a sledgehammer and proceeded to smash the whole thing to smithereens, and that they actually kind of struck up quite a useful relationship thereafter, because of that type of almost nihilistic, although it isn't really nihilistic. But what it does is it kind of sheds light on the commonality, that, I mean, the one thing that we're all interested in is viscera, isn't it? We're all interested in the way in which we're somehow touched by things. Well, leastways, there are exceptions. And I don't want to talk about architects again, but there you go. So if something moves you, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's life enhancing, and when I'm working on something, I want to be surprised. I like nothing more than to, and that's why I'm working on these large watercolors at the moment. But I like nothing more than to go to bed with something that is drying, that I've no idea ultimately how it's going to end up in the morning, whether it's going to be a good thing or whether I have to work on it some more or whatever. But there's going to be this kind of nighttime transmogrification, from wetness to dryness or whatever, and the hues are going to change, the tone's going to change, and the look of it's going to change. And I then when I wake up in the morning, and I can see in my head how it was when I went to bed, because one of the things that I do have is a little bit of an eidetic memory. So, a little bit of me like manages to keep images in my head. And then in the morning, I go and look at it, and I'm all kind of excited to see how it is. Invariably, my heart sinks. But I mean, my heart has sunk so many times, that, I feel like what was it, the Mary Rose, that old galleon they brought up. Yeah. And you have to be very careful, of course, when you get wood out of water that's been in there for centuries, don't you? Because it falls apart. Yes. So treat me gently during this interview.
Yeah, I always look at events of the world that's similar. Going to bed wet, COVID. What's going to happen at the end of it when you wake up, when the world wakes up? What's it going to look like? 9/11, 2008. Those are sort of ongoing pieces of art in my eyes.
Exactly. And the thing is, it takes a long time to... they always say with isms in the art world, that you like they almost say in 10-year periods, and you've got to be out of that 10-year period or however long it is, out of that context before you can objectify, before you can kind of see a little more clearly what it meant. And sometimes, like now, the stuff I'm working on now, for me, resonates and sheds light on the stuff I was doing in the 90s. And I never thought I would return to aspects of that syntax and that vocabulary that I was dealing with then. But it's different now. It's like, you never stand in the same stream twice, isn't it? Anyway, by the way, I just realized, I've been kind of rambling on so much. You have to excuse me, but I do get overexcited when I get attention.
Hey, well, no ideas. You made my job extremely easy. You've already answered most of the questions. I am kind of curious. You were talking about something coming full circle. Are you finding now that it's been 30 years, basically, since Factual Nonsense? Are you starting to see elements of your work from 30 years ago coming back?
Well, what do you mean, generally, or
just generally?
Personally?
Like I always find, like in my life, something will happen, and I look back, and it's come full circle.
Yeah, again, I think I use the metaphor Möbius strip. Where you travel on the inside and it becomes the outside, and the other way around. So what seems to occur is that, and again, it relates to everything we spoke about before, about the way in which, time has to intervene as well in order to clarify things. Is that a lot of the things that I thought Factual Nonsense were about are not in quite the same order that I thought they were. Because obviously my perceptions are slightly different, but also there were a lot of things in the ether at that time, which I think is what you're probably getting at, is the fact that the context, the cultural context of that time was different certainly to the way it is now, and also it was the beginning of cybernetics, in the sense of the way in which we could manipulate reality instantly, or we could make decisions instantly. As soon as like Photoshop came in, as soon as this came in, and decisions could be made instantly, and I think for me that made it even more important to have a gestation period, because that's the one thing that is missing with instant responses, is the way in which things get modified or even torn up during a gestation period, that we kind of catch up with things. And when you look, for instance, on Instagram or, any of the kind of social media pages where you can tell pretty accurately if an image had been constructed on the computer in the first place, or if the decisions were made, emulating the kind of cybernetic condition, of instantaneity, because there isn't that hard-won image, that sense of something being, battled for, and where your inner urges are either being accommodated or being rejected through the process, but at least ways they're being questioned. So there isn't that kind of interrogation that goes on by and large with a lot of the kind of instant graphics. And in fact, I first noticed that strangely. I'm only thinking now, but when you look at early films and you look at later films, and you think, goodness me, that those early films, they spent ages looking at the side of that woman's face, from the same position. Whereas, you look at a film like 30 years later and it's like bang, 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 you move from there to there to there, like it's all staccato. And this is a vast generalization, but what it means is that the kind of thing that I subscribe to, by and large, I still subscribe to now, which is the way in which the human condition can somehow have light shed upon it by the mere fact of almost Neanderthal manipulation. Because one of the things I always felt was, if anybody hadn't benefited from evolution, it was me. I once got sent a postcard, by the way, of this Neanderthal man. And when it came through the door, and it was a mock-up of a Neanderthal man, and I thought, I don't remember that being taken. And I thought it was me, and it was this Neanderthal, totally unevolved, So
was he wearing a green silk?
yes, I know, yeah, but these context makes a big difference. And of course, one of the strange battles that I think we all have, except for your lad, of course, because he's still formative. You see, he's just so young, and it's the fact of those like formative years. When your appetite is you're really hungry for something, and you're looking around and picking up, tenets from here and tenets from there, and they kind of stick with you, and they become, I think, the most difficult things to question. When you said about like the cringe quotient, well, and I mentioned also perplexedness, because I'm always looking to be perplexed as well. Because sometimes I've been to exhibitions. The first one I went to where I was fully perplexed was there was a neo-expressionist exhibition at the Royal Academy in London many, many decades ago. And I went there and I thought, I don't like this. It might give me a headache. I kind of got migraine coming on and stuff. And, I was going all kind of feeble. And I go through an existential crisis, and then when I got back home and I kept seeing these images. And one of them, of course, was, Philip Guston, the way his work changed almost on the flip of a coin from being lyrical abstraction during his most abstract expressionist period to being almost cartoon-like, large-scale Crumb Brothers cartoons, massive things. And I looked at them, and the first thing you think is, what a betrayal. He's kind of let the side down. He's lost the faith. Because you've got all these kind of these tenets, all these rules that you've absorbed by osmosis that you haven't really thought through. And you're saying, yeah, this is what's important, not what he's doing. That's superficial. That's cosmetic. You come out with all the kind of cliches, all the put downs you can think of, that you would exploit at a dinner party to, raise your status. So you start putting them out at these people like that, and I was getting like these headaches and stuff, and then I thought, I've got to go back and have another look, and so I went back and had another look, and after about 3 visits, I was sold. I thought, goodness me, this is so exciting. They're really questioning this, they're questioning that, and I'll have to come back again, and I noticed that there were things kind of going on inside me that were questioning it. Same with the first kind of 70s manifestation of postmodernism, where people would start dredging up mythology as subject matter. So you couldn't move for minotaurs, because also it's the start of the kind of feminism and spare rib and stuff as well. So you got, if you'd step back into a minotaur, trip over an egg, there were all this kind of symbolic objects around, and everybody wanted to be like Titian, and everybody wanted to use Greek words, in their titles, and it was like, this is somehow going to give them status, by creaming off what's gone before and showing just how well informed you are. So there are all these kind of movements, and of course your own work is situated, because it's your own work and it's a lifetime's thing. Then it's going through all of these little conduits, isn't it? It's going through these little sitcoms, so to speak. Does that answer you? Did you ask? Yes.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am my own.
It does.
I am my own Mobius strip, I tell you.
One thing I'd like to just hear from you. I mean, you mentioned how, there's different phases of art, like 10-year blocks or so. And, if you're working through those periods, your work is going to be influenced by that. But then there's also the element of like, there's you inside all of your work throughout those periods. I'm curious, like, where is David within your work through that lineage? Because I mean, you hear that in musicians and composers, you can tell a Wagner piece from a Beethoven piece, for obviously.
Yeah.
But like, where are you inside all of that?
Well, of course, I mean, again, I'm always grateful for other artists' statements. And of course, Robert Motherwell said, the artist is the last to know, And so as a practitioner, you in a way, you can't really afford to do anything other than feel relevant or not feel relevant, but try and keep in touch with what feels right, given your own limitations, given your own preoccupations, and so sometimes, like at the moment, like the number of times that I've read over these many years I've been painting that painting is dead, in the magazines, like headlines, whenever there's a kind of a new conceptual movement, or whenever there's an element again to do with computer art, they always want to make these kind of blanket statements about things. And one of the factors that is exactly as it is in music is that if it's good, it's timeless, and it is revisitable. And that's what you want in art, is something that you can revisit and find something, because you are different. So you visit the same stream, you step in the same stream, but it's a different stream, because you're different. You're older, you've experienced more, you're looking for different things. And so, if something is timeless, like if you go and see a good Titian or a good Goya, or again, a good Bonnard, then it's going to touch you. It's going to make sense to you. And you're going to be able to extrapolate as well as just simply, be moved by it. You're going to be able to steal a few things from it, and say, oh, this is an interesting way to do. Like one of the things that I at one stage stole from Bonnard was his working method of, pinning a great big canvas up and working on a couple of things at the same time and not deciding on what size they were going to be, but waiting until they kind of expanded and then cutting it out and framing it and saying, okay, that's the size it's going to be. And then, of course, he was notorious for, he'd be invited round, some buyer, say, oh, it's lovely painting I bought from you last year. And then, halfway through the dinner party, he'd come out, get his brushes, start working on it a bit more, So, it's that kind of relationship that you hope for. You hope that, I don't burn very much of my stuff. I burned, funnily enough, a couple of weeks back, I burnt a couple of canvases that I absolutely knew they were rubbish. And I'd never allowed myself to say that they were rubbish until that moment that I decided I wanted to have a fire in the garden. And I couldn't find any wood anywhere. So it was all mitigated, But because I'm such, so self-obsessed, I did video it burning on my smartphone, just in case it might have relevance one day. Yeah. So So what I'm saying really is that I think we kind of we evolve, as the work evolves, and also, the bottom line quest is the same all the time, isn't it? We're trying to make sense of what is notionally called the human condition, but we're just trying to make sense of what it is to be us and to feel full, not empty. So I think it's simple and complex at one and the same time, which is again why string theory is such a beautiful theory.
Let's get to your quote. We
right.
ask every guest. We ask every guest, even though it keeps getting buried.
Well, you will choose people who like talking, about themselves. Yeah.
Well, this is the moment.
Okay, right.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what is the quote that you brought to us today?
Okay, that was Barnett Newman's famous quote, which was, "Aesthetics is to the artist as ornithology is to the birds." Yeah. And the reason I enjoy that quote and have used it many times is that it's more than it seems. Because at first you understand why he's saying that initially. What you're saying really is that the theory of art should have no impact on the artist's practice. He shouldn't be influenced by the study of his art form, whatever it is, in any more of a way than a bird is influenced by the study of birds. Yeah. So he's saying that kind of fairly straightforwardly, except then you start to look into it a little bit more and you go, hang on a minute, let's look at the effects. And sure enough, like we were just talking about, formative years and so on, aesthetics does affect the artist, whether he likes it or not. Because of the involvement and the interest in the notion of the study of beauty, which is, a simple definition of aesthetics. And similarly with ornithology. Now, the birds, of course, they won't study about themselves, but ornithology itself will affect the birds because it means that some birds will survive and some will die because of ornithology. And so there are these kind of side effects that take place that do actually impact upon it. And so it's one of those definitions, one of those statements that has a bunch of truths within it. And some of them are kind of useful to recall from time to time. They can just be a useful balm for our otherwise clouded, narcissistic self-preoccupation. Speaking personally, of course. I mean, I'm not impugning either of you two with anything like that. Self-deception.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So there's that. But one interesting thing with Barnett, because I already mentioned that other quote of his, didn't I? The sculpture one. stepping back and bumping into it. But, one of his most famous pieces, which was Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue? A massive painting with a big zip, a vertical line there, which again, early deductive structure, way before the minimalists. He did that, and of course it got slashed some years afterwards by a so-called artist, an anarchic artist who slashed it, and they were, oh God, we're never going to kind of get this surface back together again. I know, let's go to this fellow whose name was Bladder. Now, I would never go to anybody called Bladder. I really wouldn't. I'll go somewhere else because I believe in nominative determinism. And so I wouldn't go for a Bladder. But anyway, they went for a Bladder, and he had it for about 6 months, and he came back and he said, you can't see the, a bit like somebody wearing a fake wig, you can't see the join, So they were kind of looking along, and sure enough, you couldn't see the join. It was done beautifully. And the reason for it was that he got a big fat roller, he glued it at the back, got a big fat roller, mixed up approximation of the red, got his roller out, bish bash bosh, he kind of decorated it really. And because they got back and the experts looked at it and they said, well, wasn't it a little bit shinier than this? Because I think he used like emulsion or something weird like that. But anyway, what was quite interesting was a bit like the voice and the fakeness, the notion of fake news and stuff, which again, fake news, factual nonsense, all goes round and round, doesn't it? And so they said, oh no, this is terrible now. It's not the Barnett Newman now. So anyway, they took Bladder out of the equation and they got someone else in. I can't remember what their name was, but it wasn't like that. It was sort of like Testicle. But anyway, they got somebody else to come back in, and they stitched it, like a surgeon, and then they did proper forensic examination of the surface, and they did it beautifully. You could still see just a little bit there, but it was, at least it got the essence of the Barnett Newman painting back. Blow me down. As soon as the fellow who came in and slashed it in the first place heard about this, rushes back in, gives it another slashing. Except that, you see, this is the twist in the tale. That's why things aren't always that bad. Because he went in, it wasn't on display. Because they'd put it in the side of it. But next to it was this blue one. So he thought, oh, I'll slash that then. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is kind of quite interesting, really, about the veracity and the integrity of the person who went around slashing it. Because really, if you can imagine, can't you, if you're a gangster, a hitman, and they say, oh, go and kill, old Joe over there, and then Joe's gone in for a drink, and you go, oh, I'll kill him then instead. There's this other innocent person walking by. Your reputation would be in shatters, wouldn't it? They'd never hire you again to get rid of somebody, because you'd be just so indiscriminate, and that's what happened. So this guy, again, he's now in some kind of psychiatric unit somewhere, having now slashed another Barnett Newman, but a different one. But at least, I suppose the good thing is, guess who they're not giving it to repair? Yeah, you're right, Bladder. Yeah, he's out of the equation now. Yeah. So there was that was an adjunct to the quotation, but yeah, that's kind of one of the quotations I like to bring out when I'm trying to impress somebody. Like now, for instance.
So on that note, when Marianita Elizalde was on the podcast, she told us that she welcomed criticism and even enjoyed it. How do you deal with critics?
What, do you want me to get the spade?
Yeah.
You dig them up. No.
Oh, only one?
Yeah. No, actually, it really depends. That's a very, very interesting question, because on the one hand, I relish criticism, providing I can feel that the person dishing out the criticism, somehow has a grasp of what it is they're criticizing. I tell you why that is. When I had my first exhibition at Nottingham University in the fellowship thing there, and they always wanted the artist to give a gallery talk. Yeah, so all paintings around, and so I start, swanning around like I do, rabbiting on about the paintings, and then suddenly I heard this fella go, "It's rubbish," like that, and off he stormed out from the gallery. And my instinct was to run after him, and to give him what for criticizing me. Now you see, that's not the right approach, is it? If somebody criticizes you, then you have to take it on the chin. You go, okay, what is it that they're saying, and what's the agenda, for that. And I tend to, like with other people, I can sometimes unintentionally be a bit harsh with them, but most of the time I'm kind of really want something good. I'm really looking to be very happy. I'm really looking to be touched by something, and love it. And like with Marianita, I've known her for such a long time, and I love her work. I love her approach. And I'm envious of Marcelo, because she's so good for him. She's such a strong person, and Marcelo is such a one-off. It's like the best inbred pony you could come across is old Marcelo. Really looks good. Yeah. He kicked the stable door down, and he'll kind of go to the wrong place at the wrong time. With Marcelo, I've got a little electric bike, and as you know, because you've interviewed him, he has visual impairment, although it's not so bad now. And I met them for a coffee last year. This was, and I was on my electric bike, pedal assist bike. And Marcelo says, "Oh, can I have a go?" And Marina said, "No, Macho, no." Next minute, he's on it, and he's not only on it, but he's like traveling at like 60 miles an hour up and down, Pimlico, and she's kind of in the middle of the road, saying, "Marcelo, come back, you'll kill yourself." And that's what he's like, He's a disciplined loose cannon, if that makes sense.
A disciplined loose cannon. There we go.
Yeah, and but both of them, I love them to bits. I mean, like I say, I met Marcelo when Joshua was taking me to look at a new studio, and Marcelo was looking to find a studio for Marianita when she came to London, and that's how we got to meet each other, talk to each other, because he was too slow to walk, and I'm naturally reptilian anyway, so we were about the same. We were neck and neck, about 100 yards behind Joshua, who was striding off in his public school +4s, and his handmade leather, bespoke Savile Row shoes, clip-clopping along as they do. Yeah. So, but with regard to that question, that's one of the most awkward questions I've ever been asked, I think, because, part of me wants to say, "Oh yes, I welcome criticism. Yeah, coming in and, tell me it's a load of rubbish whenever you like." But I don't, I want people to really like the stuff, I want them to be somehow affected by it. And, if they're giving me a bad time because it's not like something else that they do like, then in some ways, it's of no consequence to me, if you know what I mean. It's not a very good answer, is it, to a rather difficult question.
It's a tough question.
Yeah. I mean, may I shine it back on you?
I take it really hard. I'm similar.
Oh, thank God for
that. I want. Yeah, don't give me a thumbs down. And those are the worst.
Yes.
If you just get a thumbs down, it's like somebody just walking out. Oh, a dog just burst into the room here. If you just get a thumbs up or thumbs down, you don't know what it is that people don't like.
Yeah, what you did wrong. Yeah,
what did I do wrong? And can I fix it? I know, and Hayden knows this, in social media, I work in the e-com industry, basically. And, you'll have somebody that just says, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I've reached out and said, what do you mean, blah, blah, blah? Let me know what you're talking about, because I want to know. And it does bother me. I really don't want to look at comments, but I do. I cringe. Hey, cringeworthy.
Yeah, exactly. But the other flip side of that is that, and again, Marianita set up my Instagram site. Yeah, when she was over some time back, and she took my phone off me, and she starts kind of putting these photographs on and everything, and I thought, oh, that's okay. And then she said, oh no, you like that one, and I said, oh, I don't like that one. No, you got to like that one. Press it hard. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to kill you. I don't like it, And so I'm having this kind of internal battle between me saying, like, I don't really like that, but also during the lockdown, and I had a kind of temporary studio in the out in the sticks when I was working just on watercolors, and so I was kind of I got into this routine of I would work in this small studio on the watercolors, and then about 5 o'clock I would get on my bike and I would cycle about 5 miles to this little pond with little geese and a mill and stuff like that, proper pastoral English landscape. And then I would get my sketch pad out and I'd do, little drawing, little landscape drawing. And she came across and she said, oh, you must put these on there. Such lovely drawings. And so she bish, bash, bosh, she starts putting these landscapes on. Now, to me, the representational stuff I do, which is not very often, but I do like doing it occasionally, it means absolutely nothing to me, and it doesn't relate to the work at all. It's like a hobby or something. It's like an exercise, it's just something that I do to just to pass time and because I can do it, then it's somehow, if I bring it back and like the family say, oh, why don't you do more of these? Look at these houses. Look at those geese. They got so much gooseness about them. Why don't you really capture gooseness? And I try to explain, that my heart isn't in it for that, because it doesn't shed any light on the perplexing problem I have about what am I going to do when, like, I'm now approaching the menopause, as you can probably tell. And, I would have thought that by now I would have understood something. I pretty much, if you'd asked me when I was like 20, when are you going to achieve a level of sagacity that you can tell us all what reality is, I would have said like 27. I would have known exactly the year 27. I will know what's going on. And here I am now, approaching 40, and still I have no idea at all, what this thing is about. And of course I get really interested in, I get interested in quantumness, basically. I really am a big fan. I'm subscribed to New Scientist and stuff. I really love finding out about the different theories the different hypotheses, membrane and string theory and so on. And I'm always thinking, this is exactly just like it is now for me. Here I am, like your lad there, with his, when he gets his guitar out or what, so some instrument up there, I can pluck the string and you go, oh yeah, pluck the string. There's a sound. I can't see the sound anywhere. I can hear it. I can't see it anywhere. It's that kind of thing. And then I'm thinking, this is, we're talking the same language here, me and the cosmologists. But of course, that's a fabrication, because I'm no clearer to understanding this than Trump was in understanding COVID-19. I get so political with him,
But he knows it 100%, doesn't he? Like Al Gore invented the internet.
110%.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Let's touch on some obstacles. What do you think is or was your greatest obstacle in your career?
Besides me?
Well, sometimes that's the case, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that's ever been the case.
Well, it kind of has in one sense, because although I'm finding it a lot easier having this little discussion than I thought I would, like most good actors, I'm profoundly shy. But also, not just that, I've always had trouble with the notion of and ridiculously so, the notion of networking and the notion of selling the stuff, doing everything like that. I'm absolutely rubbish at that kind of, which is why I've in the past done better when I've had somebody represent me, like Joshua or so on. And that's what I find difficult. And I think it comes down to I think there are a couple of significant moments in my tragic life, early life, that helped to move. I think I was speaking to the lad about delusions of adequacy. Well, when I was at school, I remember my teacher being away. This was in a very young school. My teacher being away ill, and this teacher of the I don't know what the term would be you would use for the ones that have an IQ slightly lower than the chair on which they're sitting. But anyway, I was in that class, and the teacher said, right, who can spell which? And so I put my jolly little hand up and I said, WITCH, because I thought, that's clever, that is, which. It's a different which, Anyway, I got a smack around the head for that and humiliated because it should have been WHICH. You see, well, I wanted to say to him, well, you should have put it into context, But of course, I was only about 6 or 7 when that happened. So that wasn't very good for my self-esteem. Then we had the whole kind of upbringing thing. I remember being invited when I first went to that big school when I was 12. I got invited to supper, I think they called it, at this friend who decided to make friends with me, and his name was Roderick Plantagenet Barton. So you can imagine, he didn't come from a street, So I went to his place, and there was this proper little thing laid out, cucumber sandwiches and stuff like this. And I really didn't know how to behave at all. And I felt so self-conscious, and so embarrassed by it. So that didn't help. Those things didn't help. And also one time at school, all these painful things you're bringing up in me now. I'm going to get PTSD if I'm not careful. But anyway, I remember some seconds coming round, and I was a big lad then, and big appetite. And I leant over and grabbed this, whatever it was. And suddenly I got another smack around the head from this other teacher, who expected me to, sit there and say grace and wait for it to land on the plate. Well, you kind of didn't do that the way I was brought up, because, if you didn't do what I did, you wouldn't actually get it. So Anyway, all those things meant that I've always hovered. And again, this is probably where it comes down to, I've always hovered between being full of myself, like now while we're talking about me, because one thing I'm sure of is that, I know more about my life than other people do. So at least I've done my homework on that one. But it means that I'm not very good at seeing my work as a commodity, seeing my work being retailed, even though I absolutely know that that's the reality. That's what has to be done. That's the only way that I manage to. I know I look anorexic, but really, I've been even thinner than I am now. And, you have to do things to eat and also you have to complete the triangle, which is always hard as well. I've always thought, oh yes, I'll be in my self-isolating studio. And I've always been so happy when I'm just working on my own. And absolutely, but unless somebody comes along and is interested and looks at it, then that triangle is incomplete. You have no audience. And although it's not essential for the production of it, as somebody like Van Gogh would testify, at the same time, you want somehow for it to be visible, and for your input, for your being that's inside it, this kind of existential manifestation of you, that it somehow touches other people, And I'm not quite sure how grown up that is, even now, So those are the obstacles. They're really feeble obstacles because, sometimes I'm incorrigible, and. I was waiting for you both to contradict me on that one, but there you go. You can wait and wait.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk the other side then. What about your greatest successes?
About half an hour, I think.
We got time.
yeah. I can see jealousy where I can see it. Yeah. No, envy. Greatest successes. Yeah. What do you mean in terms of object making, or in terms of generally throughout life? Yeah. On a meta level, my biggest success is the fact that I've managed to stick to being a professional artist without breaks since I was 15, when I started to sell drawings of boats on holiday at the seaside. And I've managed to keep that there and the integrity. And also, I'm quite proud of not having succumbed to the various superannuated temptations that have come my way, in terms of jobs and remuneration of different forms. Because, I've been so lucky. I've had 3 fellowships. Now that's 3 times more than most, isn't it? It's a lot of fellowships. It's a lot of money given to me. And also, I got 2018, I got the Gottlieb Foundation Award. About 10 years before that, I got a Pollock Krasner Award. So every so often, people have given me money.
I don't mind that. I don't mind when people give me money.
Well, I know I don't mind. Actually, there are a couple of a beautiful couple who live in New York, and they've got a place. Well, they're getting a place here in London, and they kind of collect. I've got a couple of collectors who just never learn, so they got lots and lots of pieces of mine, and they always turn up when my car has died. It's unbelievable. The last 3 times, like a car seized up, and I thought, oh shit, I'm on a bike again and everything. They come over and say, oh, I'll have that. Here's the money, and then I go out and I buy another car. And that's the way it kind of goes. I get bailed out by things. by people. And thank goodness I've got 3 basic collectors, and I think that 40 is the most that one of them has. Another one has 28 pieces, and that's a lot of stuff. Considering I don't have very many collectors, otherwise I would be rich. But I've got 3 or 4 who have been very loyal over the years, and very supportive. And I really appreciate that, and that kind of keeps me going, because you really only need one person, don't you, to say, hey, you amount to something, and you feel big, you feel good about yourself, even if it's only momentarily, you feel like you swell a little bit, in a nice way, not like edema or some kind of big abscess on your neck, don't like that kind of stuff.
That only happens when you have 5 to 10, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the way, can I compliment you on your hairstyle?
On my hair, yes, we go to the same barber, right?
We certainly do.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, when we do a recap, next time this year, I'm hoping that you'll grow the beard as well.
Yes. I tell you, I might give it a try, except that you don't think that might compromise my otherwise beauteous visage?
No, I think the beard would be, it would
help.
little,
it would help,
yes.
Would it? Yeah. Okay. I can take that. We're talking back again about criticism, aren't we? I can take that.
There we go.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I just had to do it.
Yeah. No.
But look, this has been a beyond enjoyable conversation. I got to ask you back at one point, because you're so great. I mean, I'm asking you questions and I'm expecting a certain answer, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. And I'm laughing. I don't think I've laughed so much during an interview as what I've done with you. So thank you for...
Oh, that's very kind. No, I tell you, I've enjoyed it too. And if we were in closer proximity, I would make you my blood brother.
There we go.
I would slash your palm, slash my palm, stick them together.
Just like that.
Just like that. Yeah.
Now, David, it really has been great. I'm glad you were able to come onto the podcast today. And, at the end of every podcast, we always ask our guests one question, and that's, do they know a guy?
Well, yes, I actually hint at 2 guys, I feel are interesting in a completely different way to me. Should I say both? Or I can't say both, can I? Because you're going to have to choose one of them.
Or both, depending if they want to come on. We're always looking for interesting guys.
Okay. Well, this is again a page out of the Trump theory of how to be successful, and that's my son-in-law is Carlton, who is a one-off himself. He runs a kind of video business. He's a filmmaker, and he's a very, very interesting self-made person. And he's always up for anything, really. And his background was his father apparently used to drive him about 200 miles from home, and then kick him out the car and give him 10p and say, make your own way back, that kind of stuff. So there's that. And then the other one is this fellow that I only met about 18 months ago, a guy called Chris, and he set up a magazine, the River magazine, that ran a couple of articles about me, because he got put onto me when he was dealing with factual nonsense, because there was another kind of event that seemed to have factual nonsense as a precedent for it. And anyway, he's a Liverpool guy, so he came over and we hit it off, and he's just a very interesting guy. He's one of those multi-talented ones, again, like your lad, He can he does the web stuff. He does a whole load of things. He runs the magazine, but also he's also a painter. And he paints in his shed at the back, and he's just. And he's lived in Spain. He's done things in different places. He's just kind of seems to be, he's not very old. He seems to have been around everywhere. I think he's in his 40s, maybe, something like that. But he's an interesting guy. And I don't know, there's an element of integrity about him that I really warm to. He's a very, very sincere guy. And also, he takes it on the chin as well, because, if you're from Liverpool, they have such a weird reputation, the Scousers, about like nicking the hubcaps off cars and stuff like that, So, I can rib him quite nicely, and he takes it. And we always have a nice drink when he comes. He lives on the coast somewhere. But anyway, those two are kind of dynamic people, not exactly in the art world, But I noticed from your other podcasts anyway that you deal with quite a broad palette.
It is very diversified.
Yeah. Because before we go, how did you come to be where you are and doing what you do? In one sentence.
Complete fluke. Having a cigar, phone call came in, 3 different phone calls. I said there was one common denominator. I know a guy. And Hayden looks at me and says, we should do a podcast about that. Interesting people, And that's how it started. It was a COVID project. And I am a 100% introvert. So doing a podcast is very much outside of my comfort zone.
Well, you certainly made it a lot more comfortable for me than I expected it to be. So I appreciate that. And in fact, I'm so comfortable, I'm taking that patch off my face.
All right, David. So thank you again for being our guest today. And I can't wait to contact Carlton and Chris, see when they can get on the podcast as well.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for making me feel comfortable.
And I'm glad you took
in my own skin.
Yeah, and I'm glad you took the sticky paper off. So yeah.
Oh, you noticed?
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that's it for our interview with David Taborn. Make sure to tune in next time for our interview with Michael Peterson. You might recognize that name from him being at the top of the country music charts for a while. He's also a great producer, songwriter. Along with all that, he took a less traditional path to become a country star, so that was kind of interesting to hear. So make sure to check it out. If you want to join in on some discussion of today's episode, make sure you join our Facebook group. That's our group, not our page. And we're trying to get some conversation going over there. And we'd love to hear from you if you're listening to the show. Really help us out and help grow our community. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time.